Hi class, I am at doctor's appointments today and you are in great hands with Mr. Thorson. He was a former Northwest teacher who is now doing some subbing, so I know you'll be respectful and responsible for him. Today we're going to quickly introduce Chapter 5, Ratios and Proportions. You can see on the screen that we will be doing ratios and rates, proportions, writing proportions. We'll be solving those proportions. We will talk about slope, which we have a little bit already, and then we'll also talk a little bit about direct variation. As you are aware, we usually have a couple of cartoons. As you can see, the dog is doing an experiment with slope. I want you to run up and down the board 10 times. Now, with 2 more dog biscuits, do it again and we'll compare your rates. This is what happens when you give a dog too many biscuits. So one of the things that we are going to talk about is unit rates. So when there were this, we can find out how many there were per bone or per hour or something like that. So we will be doing some things like that. Our second one, dear sir, I counted the number of bacon, cheese, and chicken dog biscuits in the box I bought. There were 16 bacon, 12 cheese, and only 8 chicken. That's a ratio of 4 to 3 to 2. Please go back to the original ratio of 1 to 1 to 1. And the cat says, and while you're at it, how about throwing in a couple of tuna and mouse flavors as well? So we're going to talk about some ratios. Hopefully you can see where they might get 4 to 3 to 2 on this one. 1 to 1, 1 would mean that they would all be equal. Our last cartoon is, I wonder if our rate is proportional to the slope of the hill, or possibly proportional to our stupidity. So one of the things that we will be able to do is compare proportions and slope. The first thing that we are going to have to do in Chapter 5 is we are going to have to simplify fractions. We are going to simplify for 8s. One of the things that I know is I can simplify by dividing by the greatest common factor. The greatest common factor of 4 is 4 because I have 1, 2, and 4 as factors. Greatest common factor of 8 is also 4 because I have 1, 2, 4, and 8 in there. So when I divide both of these by 4, I simplify 4 eighths to 1/2. In my second example, simplifying 10/15ths, you can see we're going to divide both of those by 5. Our answer is 2/3. We will now practice a couple of problems together. Please see if you can do these 4 problems on your own, simplify them, and then pause the video while students work on this. When most students are done, please restart the video and I will have answers. Thanks. Hopefully you had a couple minutes to be able to simplify these. The top one, 12 144ths, the greatest common factor is 12. I divided both by 12 and I got 1/12. But if you look down here, I may have not known that 12 was the greatest common factor. I may have decided that they were both even numbers, so I divided by 2. That gave me 6/72 when I did that. I then noticed those were even as well. I divided by 2 again. I got 3/36. I knew that I could divide both of those by 3, and we get 1/12. So as you can see, there are many ways that we can come up with simplifying fractions. 15/45 divided by 15 on both gives us 1/3. You could have divided by 5, you could have divided by 3, and then simplified again. In the third one, 75th 100ths is divided by 25, gives us the answer of 3/4. And in number 4, 16/24 can be divided by 8 to give us 2/3. Our second set of problems that we will have to do is identify equivalent fractions. So the question asks, is 1/4 equivalent or equal to 13/52? What I can do is I can take my larger fraction and I can try to simplify it. When I do, I take 13 divided by 13 is 1. 52 divided by 13 is 4. So 1/4 is equivalent to 13/52 because I simplify to equal. Some of you also may understand that 1 times 52 can equal 4 times 13 if the cross angles are equivalent, then the fractions are equivalent. In our second example, 30/54 divided by 6 is 5/9. 5/9 is not equivalent to 5/8. Here are 4 problems that I would like for you to try. Please take a couple minutes and pause the video while the students do this, and then start the video back up, and I will have the answers. Thanks. So in our second set of problems, 15/60, we can divide both by 15, you get 1/4. 1/4 does not equal 3/4. The other way that you can do this is by cross multiplying. You can see 3 times 60 does not equal 15 times 4, so that is also not correct. 2/5, when I simplified 144, I divide both by 24, it gets 1/6, so this is not equivalent. Over here, when I divide this, I divide by 5, which gives me 3/4 is not equal to 3/5. And number 8, 2/8 I can divide by 2, which is 1/4. 16 over 64 divided by 16 is 1/4, so I will have equivalent fractions. The third thing which we must continue working on is solving equations. We're going to solve 12x equals 168. Excuse me. We write the equation, we use the division property of equality to get x all by itself. We know that x is 14. You do not have to check unless you have a question on these. Please solve these 4 equations. Give students about 2 or 3 minutes until they are finished, and then please start the video again and I will have answers. Thanks. For your answers to these problems, I see that this is division problem by -5, so we are going to do the opposite, which is multiply by -5. So 3 times -5 gives us y equals -15. This problem is a multiplication problem. We are going to do the opposite, which is division. When we divide by 2/10, we will get a equals 3. Again, this is a multiplication problem. We are going to divide by -2. A negative divided by a negative is a positive. So we will get 9/2 or 4 1/2. 1/7, we divide by the reciprocal. When we divide by 1/7, which means we multiply by the reciprocal, so we're multiplying by 7. We get n equals 28. Today, your homework is the Fair Game Review, problems 1 through 20. Show work as necessary. Have a great day. I will be back on Wednesday to start the trimester off. Thanks.